The Galactic Council never expected the humans to walk away. For decades, they had been negotiating, debating, and at times condescending. Humanity was the last major species to join the interstellar stage, and to the Council, they were little more than an unpredictable variable in an otherwise orderly galaxy. Wars had been waged and settled, treaties signed and broken, but through it all, the Council believed in one truth: diplomacy always won in the end. So when tensions flared between humanity and the Dominion, a vast empire of warlike species that saw negotiation as a sign of weakness, the Council did what it always did. They called for peace talks. They invited humanity to the table, assuming they would fall in line, that they would agree to terms, compromise, and move on. It had worked before, time and time again. But the humans didn't sit down. They stood. Across the chamber, representatives from the older races, those who had been part of the Council for centuries, exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. The Council chamber was a place of words, not silence. Yet there they stood, humanity's delegation, staring at their so-called allies with an expression that sent a chill through the room. It wasn't anger. It wasn't desperation. It was something far worse. Resolve. The lead negotiator, a hardened diplomat who had seen the best and worst of galactic politics, placed both hands on the table, leaning forward just enough for the weight of their presence to be felt. When they finally spoke, their voice was calm, controlled. "We came here to negotiate in good faith," they said. "But good faith requires honesty." The Council remained quiet. The Dominion's delegation, seated smugly at the opposite end of the hall, barely hid their amusement. They had made their demands clear: territory, resources, the dismantling of human defenses along the border. It was an ultimatum, dressed in the language of diplomacy. The kind of deal the Council always pushed through, using the weight of galactic law and tradition. But the humans had seen through it. "You call this peace?" the human continued. "We call it surrender." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Dominion's representatives grinned, their sharp teeth glinting under the artificial lights. To them, this was nothing more than posturing one last attempt to bargain before inevitable submission. The human diplomats straightened. "We've listened. We've compromised. And we've learned." Their gaze swept across the room, landing on each race that had counseled restraint, urged patience, promised protection that never came. "But if this is what passes for peace in your council, then humanity has no place in it." The air seemed to thin. Somewhere in the chamber, a counselor gasped. The Dominion's leader blinked, their amusement flickering into something else, something uncertain. Without another word, the humans turned and walked out. The doors slammed shut behind them. And for the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council realized it had made a mistake. A terrible, irreversible mistake. The silence that followed was heavier than the Council had ever known. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one dared to move. The humans were gone, their footsteps still echoing in the vast chamber, but their presence lingered like a shadow stretching over every delegate in the room. Even the Dominion's warlords, always so quick to sneer, remained still, their expressions unreadable. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The humans were meant to concede, to bend under the weight of tradition and political pressure. The Council had believed that, like every other species before them, they would see reason. That they would accept compromise, however bitter, because the alternative war was unthinkable. But the humans had walked away. An elder counselor, their robes weighed down with medals from long-forgotten treaties, cleared their throat. "They will return," they said, their voice unsteady but firm. "They are emotional. Impulsive. Give them time to reconsider." No one answered. Because deep down, they all knew the truth. Humanity had not stormed out in anger. There had been no shouts, no threats, no last-minute pleas. What the Council had witnessed was something else entirely. A cold, deliberate decision. A choice. A low chuckle broke the uneasy quiet. It came from the Dominion side of the chamber. One of their high commanders leaned back in their seat, claws tapping lazily against the armrest. "So that's it?" they mused. "They're finished with the game?" Their sharp-toothed grin returned, but there was something forced about it. Good. Let them go. They gestured around at the rest of the council. What are you all so afraid of? They have no allies. No fleets worth mentioning. No history of conquest. If they refuse peace, let them suffer the cost of war alone. The elder counselor's hands tightened into fists, hidden beneath the table. You misunderstand, they said quietly. This is not relief you should be feeling. The Dominion commander scoffed. And why not? The counselor finally looked up. Their aged, weary eyes swept across the chamber, taking in the faces of those who still didn't see it, who still didn't understand. Because humanity does not bluff. The word settled over the room like a heavy fog. And for the first time, uncertainty flickered in the Dominion's ranks. For centuries, the Council had overlooked the humans' history, dismissing their struggles as insignificant. They had studied humanity's wars, their alliances, their revolutions, and had drawn the same conclusion every time: an aggressive but ultimately reasonable species. One that could be controlled, guided, managed. But now, cracks had formed in that assumption. The humans had not stormed out in a fit of anger. They had walked away with the calm certainty of a people who had already made their decision. A decision the Council had yet to fully grasp. Somewhere beyond the towering walls of the chamber, out in the black void of space, a new silence was forming, the kind that comes before a storm. Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than light. Humans had abandoned the peace talks. It wasn't an official declaration of war, not yet, but it was something more dangerous. A statement, a challenge. And for the first time in living memory, the delicate balance of power that had kept the galaxy in order felt unstable. Inside the towering halls of the Dominion's war chambers, the high commanders met in secret. A dozen figures stood around a holographic display, their faces illuminated by the glow of strategic maps and intercepted transmissions. The humans had made no threats, issued no demands. No fleets had mobilized, no weapons raised. And yet, something was happening. They are preparing, one of the warlords muttered. Another snorted. For what? A fight they cannot win? The first warlord didn't answer, because even now, no one could say for certain what the humans were planning. And that was the problem. The Dominion had fought wars before long, brutal conflicts that had reshaped entire sectors. But their enemies had always followed patterns, predictable strategies. They made demands, they postured, they attacked, they retreated. The humans, however, had done something far more dangerous. They had gone silent. Meanwhile, back in human space, a different kind of meeting was taking place. The halls of Earth's military command were filled with hushed conversations, tense figures standing over data screens filled with intelligence reports. Some officials still believed there was time for diplomacy, that the Council might reconsider, that the Dominion could be reasoned with. But the ones who truly understood history knew better. This was never about peace, one strategist said, voice low but steady. It was about control. No one disagreed. Humanity had not been invited to the table as equals. The Council had expected them to sit down and accept terms dictated by species who had ruled the stars for centuries. The Dominion had never intended to coexist, they had only ever wanted submission. And now that humanity had refused, the real game was beginning.